Okay, this week's sermonette is on Luke 12, verses 16 through 21. Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do, for I do not have space to store my harvest?" And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in what matters to God." It's a very personal story. All of my life really comes down to a single moment. And the irony is, it was a moment that was really given to a man who was at the time a fool. I was just starting to get off drugs. I was trying to turn my life around. I was studying Eastern philosophy and Christianity. I was taking Bible college classes mostly just to learn about Christianity to help me in my recovery. I didn't know much about what I believed or what I thought. But one morning I wake up and I got this really intense pull to go to this local Unitarian Universalist church. No, I knew nothing about the UUs. And I didn't know how to explain what I felt except to say that God called me to it. That's how it felt. I felt like this is what a calling is. This is what it means to be called by God. And so I went to that church. And I went to a Bible study class. It wasn't a Bible study class. It wasn't. The UUs don't really study the Bible much. It was a religious studies class. And in that class, I read a book that would mark my life called Mystery Without Magic. That book's very, very important to me. It helped shape the way I look at the world. And then I met a man named Jason Pullen. And Jason Pullen was a friend, and the relationship with him marked my life. He became my role model. He was the embodiment of everything I wanted to be: self-controlled, gentle, morally committed, a deep faith in God, and highly intelligent. Everything that makes a person whole and gives a person access to the truth. I know that now. And I wanted to be like him, and so I started to model my life on him. I started to read the books that he read, and think the things that he thought to try to learn what it meant to be a whole person. And that relationship changed everything for me. Everything in my life was redirected because of that friendship. He taught me so much about what it means to be a whole person and to have a relationship with God. Now, Jason and our views have diverged on certain points. I'm much more Christocentric than he is. I'm much more Trinitarian than he is. But so much of what I believe is really an outline of what he believes, because I think that he has a handle on the truth. I think he sees the world clearly, and I want to see the world clearly too, and so I've adopted a lot of what he thought and said. I read the books that he gave me to read, and that enhanced my life. And it was Jason who turned to me and said, "Well, you have a Bible college degree now, why don't you become a youth minister?" I'd never thought about becoming a youth minister. But, he suggested it, and so I thought it must be a good idea, and so I went off to do it. And when I asked, "How do you do that?" he said, "Well, offer your services for free at a church, and eventually maybe that'll turn into a paid position," and I did that, and that's exactly what happened. I have my paid position in youth ministry today because of Jason's advice. So, on and on, all these amazing things came from this relationship. So much of what is good in my life today comes because of the relationship that I formed with Jason Pullen. And other people I met, good people at that church, even people I disagreed with. Eventually I diverged heavily from what the church teaches, and I've parted ways with the institution, but not with the people. It's a lot of good people. Among them was a man named Peter Taylor and Carol Phillips, and they introduced me to my wife. And my relationship with my wife is the only earthly relationship that has been more important and more changing for me than my relationship with Jason Pullen. Everything changed from it. My wife, she helped me become the person I am. She taught me to drive. She helped me get my jobs. Everything that's good in my life. So much of what is good in my life comes because I met my wife. And I would have never met my wife if it weren't for Carol and Peter. And in fact, I would never have gone out with my wife if it weren't for the advice of Jason Pullen. Jason is the one who suggested to me that I should take up the offer to go out on a date with her, and that's everything in my life because of that decision. But it really all goes back further to that single moment when I heard God's voice, or what might have been God's voice. You see, I didn't know at the time, and I still don't really know. There's a lot of people who tell me, well, it's just coincidence. It's just the way things worked out. This isn't a coincidence. This would be a mountain of coincidences. Everything in my life determined by a single solitary moment, a single decision to listen or not to listen. I would not be the person I am today. I would have nothing I have today if it weren't for one single solitary moment. Just thinking about it boggles the mind. That's what the Luke passage is about. You fool, this moment your life is demanded of you. Every moment is a decision. Every moment a decision is required of you. You're required to choose every moment of your life. And a single moment can determine everything. I experienced salvation today because I took a risk that maybe what I was feeling and hearing and thinking was indeed the Word of God. And as I followed that voice and I followed where it went, it turned into a chain of voices, a chain of stories, a sentence, a conversation, something that somebody is saying to me. That's what my life became. And maybe it's just a random series of events. Maybe my life just looks that way. It really isn't that way. But, I guess a billion monkeys working a billion hours can write the greatest novel ever told. But if you find the greatest novel ever told, are you crazy for thinking that it was not written by a billion monkeys writing a billion hours? This single solitary instant that Luke talks about, the instant of salvation, the instant of choice, I know what that's like. So my advice to you today, my message to you today is always be ready to choose God. Take a risk. Go out on a limb. Undertake an act of faith. It can change anything. It could change everything. It did for me. Amen.